Good evening, short storytellers. Continuing the episodes about what to write, well, not what, how to write engagingly so that people will finish your story rather than put your story down and forget about it. So, we're talking about something in book, how to craft scenes, which it's somewhere. There's a point made by the author, and that is that you have two types of scene in your any story, whether it's short or long. And there are scenes where there's action taking place, which essentially is the story, and then there are what he calls sequels, which are the aftermaths of the scene. So more precisely, during one of the scenes, these would be, if you remember, I said that you've got the inciting incident, which is the problem, and then 3 attempts to overcome that problem. And in at least 2 of them, the protagonist, the main character, needs to be partially successful or completely and utterly defeated. And those are the action parts. The aftermath, where the main character is recovering or deciding whether to renew the battle and go back into the fray, those are what he calls the sequels. I'll call them the kind of the recovery periods. So your recovery periods of necessity need to be fairly short. They're not really of interest. Imagine you're telling or you're listening to perhaps story of somebody's day, and they had a problem which caused them to be late getting back to their car, and they found their car being towed away. So then they had to go and find out where the car was. Now, the car being towed away, especially if they could see it and they were running after it, that's an action sequence. The problem that caused them to be delayed, that's an action sequence. But when they come out of said problem, supposing, for example, the problem was that they were in a bank and they found that all their cards were declined, so they couldn't get any money, so they decided to go home. So the moment in the bank is pretty tense. 1 card, 2nd card, 3rd card, and then the humiliation of being told you've got no money, so you can't understand why. So you've got to decide what to do. So that is a fairly you can draw that out because your main character is squirming with the embarrassment, and those bits the reader likes to I don't know why we're like this, but these are the juicy bits. When your main character is suffering, those are the bits that your reader likes to read. And it is your job as an author to be utterly ruthless and nasty to your main character. The bit where they come outside the bank and they've made the decision, that ordeal is over, they've got to make a decision now what to do next. That does not need a lot of examining. That needs to be, you need to get from I need to make a decision to the decision relatively quickly. And I'm not saying you've got to do it in 1 sentence, but you certainly should not be spending a lot of time on it. A paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3 tops. And the only time you would extend that would be the bits where a helper or a sage comes in and gives them advice, gives them another insight, which sets them on another direction, or is the reason for them picking themselves up, dusting themselves off, and starting all over again, to quote the song. So then the next part is another action sequence. They arrive to find that their car's being towed away, and oh my goodness, so they've got to go and try and get their car back without the benefit of any money from the credit cards, and they've got to get home. they need the car to get home. Maybe they live so far away in another city that they can't even get there by public transport, or whatever. You make it up as you go along. And so once they've gotten their car back somehow through their ingenuity, maybe stolen it back. Not sure that would work, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. Then they are driving home to confront another problem, which is why they were trying to get money in the first place. Maybe, I don't know, somebody's blackmailing them or something. But what they're thinking on the way back, they could be plotting, and then all of a sudden they've arrived at, I know what I'm going to do. And that is be where you absolutely end that scene, because they've reached a decision. Once they reach a decision on their next plan of action, that is where you cut the scene. And if you can withhold information from your reader, so much the better, because it will make them want to know what's next. What is the plan? What is the plan? I need to know the plan. And so that is what you plot out. So action sequences where your character is suffering, they can be long. You can take as long as the longer you take, the better. Okay. And the resolution sequence is where they decide, are they going to give up, or are they going to go on and carry on fighting, or take the fight into another arena. They need to be fairly short. I say 3 paragraphs. Obviously it needs to be as long as it needs to be, but absolutely no longer. Okay, so to recap, long action sequences where the main character is undergoing an ordeal, and then the aftermath of those where the main character decides what to do next and recovers if necessary. Then they need to be pretty short. Okay, and on that note, I will bid you a good evening and happy writing. And if this has been useful to you, then press like, press subscribe, and all those other things. And see you tomorrow. Good night.